Pamela, in 1973, was it?
Yes.
You went to the Argyle Arts Centre in Sydney at the Rocks, and what you saw there excited you, and you came back to Adelaide with the concept of establishing something like that in the suburb in which you lived, or the suburbs in which you lived.
Yes.
So what happened?
What happened?
Yeah.
Well, I had been researching the old Mitcham village area to do one of the Rigby sketchbooks with a friend, and during that time I'd been to Sydney, as you said, gone to the Argyle Arts Centre, and I thought, now wouldn't it be great if all these little old cottages and shops around the Mitcham village area, we could have those and have professional artists and craftsmen like weavers and potters living in these cottages, and they could gradually be restored and the whole village could be restored. So that was my concept, and it grew and grew, and I thought, got to do something about this. So just before the sketchbook was going to the publisher, I had to check up, because at that stage the Edinburgh Hotel, they were seriously thinking of demolishing it and putting up a huge hotel-motel complex on that site. So, and they'd also bought the old shop on the corner, and that had been a grocery store. And they bought that as well. So I was just checking up before the publishing to make sure that I had the latest information. And while I was talking to the secretary at the hotel, he kind of said, oh, we might lease off the old shop on the corner back to a grocer or somebody. And I kind of said on the spur of the moment, could I have a month's option on the lease? And I went home to the family and said, now what am I going to do? So I managed to get an article in the local Mitcham Courier, and also the Craft Association of South Australia had a newsletter going out, and I managed to get an article in that. So I called a meeting, and it just happened to be at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1973. And much to my surprise, 50 or so people turned up. And as a consequence, we decided that we would start a community art and crafts centre.
So when you called the meeting, how did you go about calling the meeting?
Well,
who did you contact?
Well, the people just came as a result of the 2 articles I'd had in the press. They'd just arrived. And most of them were people with an interest in the arts of some kind. And so we had an inaugural meeting after that and formed a little committee, and then we formally approached the Edinburgh Hotel and formally decided to take out the lease as from the 1st of January 74. And then over all the Christmas period, we had about 10 marvellous families would come in every weekend, and we literally restored that old building. It was horrific when we went in there. It had been empty for months and months and months, and there were dead rats and cobwebs and you name it everywhere. And the floorboards were rotting through. You could put your foot almost through it. We put in a whole new flooring in what became our gallery. The whole thing was patched and painted, and it was all ready by the 1st of March when it was officially opened by the Mayor of Mitcham. And at that stage, the Mitcham Village Sketchbook was formally published that night and launched. So that was the beginning of it.
That was the beginning. And so the original classes were craft-based?
They were everything. Over that weekend, we had the opening on the Friday night, and on the Saturday and Sunday, the whole building was open, and we had about 20 craftspeople in there who'd all set up little displays, and they were there, and we had over 200 people came through that weekend, and they interviewed the prospective tutors to find out what they could teach. and enrolled for classes. So that was the first weekend. The second weekend was the beginning of the Festival of Arts, and we had a major exhibition with work from 60 artists and craftsmen in our brand new gallery, which was not bad going, seeing we'd been open for a week.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, wow.
And then when the classes finished, when the festival finished, at the end of that 3 weeks, then we started our classes.
And when you established the classes, did you advertise locally or go to the council or?
Yeah, Mitcham Council were very, very helpful, and they gave us a $500 grant, which basically paid for our rental for that first 6 months, which was absolutely marvellous. So we never employed anybody. I was kind of the gallery director for the first couple of years, and the tutors just collected fees from their students and then passed over a percentage of that as their kind of rental of the building. So we didn't employ anybody in those early days.
Okay. And the building itself, the corner store, you had a lease on that or an option on it. Did they put a time limit on that? Did Edinburgh put a time limit on it? Or?
Well, we took the lease out originally for 6 months, and then it was extended from there on. They were very, very supportive, the owners of the hotel.
Oh, that's
and
good.
I mean, we were doing them a favour. We were restoring the building for them, so that was great. Yes.
Okay. And the initial contribution by the council was $500. And were they involved with the activities at the centre in any way?
No, they were not. They just left us to our own devices to get on with doing it.
Okay.
And, you know, a lot of the members of Mitcham Village and Mitcham Council staff would come down and have a good look around. And for quite a few years, each time there was a new group of councillors, I'd take them on a walk around the village to make sure they knew what they were on about down there, what we were doing.
Oh, well done you. And the committee structure to begin with, that was, how did that come about?
Well, we had our first inaugural meeting in January '74, and formally then had the main committee with President, Vice President, etc., etc. Mostly they were people who were tutors in the initial group of tutors. I think we only had one person who was not involved in arts and crafts, and that was our wonderful treasurer, John Rawnsley, who took us through for years and years and years and kept us on a nice even balance so that we didn't waste our money anywhere at all. So that was good.